Ultimately, it was extensive testing that helped us find the right visibility for the alley forward, using lighting, layout, and a wooden crate, an object players have already used as a sign they're headed in the right direction, all to subtly guide them forward.
Closed captions. During Half-Life 2 development, we were approached by folks interested in accessibility who encouraged us to go beyond the subtitle system we had built for Half-Life 1. They requested a full-featured closed captioning system to capture all game sounds, not just dialogue. This turned out to be a much tougher challenge than expected. Half-Life 2 produced a wide variety of sounds, and categorizing them for captions was crucial. Prioritization was also key. Dialogue needed to stand out, and it had to be clear who was speaking. Ambient sounds, like distant combat, were important for setting the mood in some levels, but less so if there was an enemy shooting nearby. Our level designers also often
What the heck? Hey, what's up with that? Just because you're great doesn't mean you don't suck. I'm still waiting.
Bioseñal de equipo de protección perdida. Probo.
Reference maps. As our characters grew more lifelike between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, we wanted the game world to feel equally realistic. In Half-Life 1, the limitations of first-person games often made it easier to lean on stylized or abstracted environments. But with Half-Life 2, we set out to create a setting that felt grounded in reality, which meant focusing on a lot of small details we hadn't before. One of our main steps was creating reference maps to standardize how we'd map real-world proportions into the game. These maps establish details like wall and door dimensions, doorknob heights, interior lighting, furniture scale, and the general scale of common objects. We created standardized textures for level designers, complete with scale and lighting values. The layouts would be consistent from the start. Besides setting up the physical world, these reference maps define
Aviso a los ciudadanos. La no colaboración será sancionada con la permanente reubicación fuera del mundo.
Anecdote 2. In the upcoming section, we needed the player to be knocked down so Alex could save them. With limited time and resources, we simplified the encounter as much as possible, reusing existing systems and letting it play out like a normal combat sequence, with a custom event triggered when the player died. After a few playtests to fine-tune the timing, we moved on. But as we got close to shipping, we encountered a problem with a playtester who quick-saved constantly and immediately hit quick load whenever they thought they'd failed.
Alex. Nailing Alex's design was a big challenge. We wanted the player to both respect and care for her. Saving Eli was a key player goal midway through the game, and we knew that getting players to care about that goal would be easier if they also cared about Alex and her relationship with her father. We intentionally designed, wrote dialogue, and cast a voice actor for Alex to be savvy, capable, and relatable within the Combine-controlled world. while also making her attractive and charismatic.
NPCs on elevators. We often spend a significant amount of time solving problems that players might not even notice. Many of these are subtle design challenges, while others stem from multiple systems interacting with each other. For example, getting non-player characters to ride in elevators posed a complex problem because it involved various systems, NPC AI decision-making.
Qué curioso que se presente justo hoy. Por aquí, Gordon. Venga, Gordon.
Kleiner's Lab. Kleiner's Lab was the first piece of storytelling we worked on, and the one that took the longest to figure out. In addition to its role in launching the player into the game, it eventually became the unifying vision for the development team in terms of story.
Choreography. The system we built and iterated on to deliver Half-Life 2's storytelling was internally called choreo, short for choreography. Early on, we found it useful to imagine we were writing a play where one of the actors didn't know the script. We needed a system that could control all the other actors, moving them around the stage, delivering their performances and speaking their lines.
Lab interactivity. In our choreo scenes, we have the player trapped for a bit, allowing us to focus on the characters and narrative. To accommodate different players, some deeply invested in the story, others unable to stand still for more than a second, we felt like we needed a constant stream of interesting details on screen. We scattered narrative elements throughout the environment, ensuring some were interactive, essentially toys for the player to tinker with. In some cases, we embedded further storytelling into these, like the cactus mini-teleporter hinting at the upcoming teleporter failure. It was a delicate balance. Too much visual interest could distract players from the core of the scene. Ultimately, Kleiner's Lab played it safe with interactivity, as it was the first major choreo scene. Later, in Eli's lab, we explored it more deeply, ensuring the characters themselves paid attention to what the players were tinkering with.
Pondrá en peligro todo nuestro trabajo.
No te preocupes, viene conmigo.
Exacto, Barney. Hoy es un día memorable. Vamos a estrenar el teletransportador con una doble transmisión.
¿Entonces funciona? ¿En serio esta vez? Porque todavía tengo pesadillas con ese gato.
Venga, no hay razón para estar nerviosos. Hemos progresado.
Character reactions. Figuring out what characters should react to and how was an ongoing challenge. At the core, we always want the game to respond to player input. However, any response from the game can be seen as a reward by the player. So, what characters react to and what they ignore teaches the player about the kind of input the game expects. As a result, we made sure to respond to things we wanted more of, like players tinkering with devices in the lab, and ignored behaviors we wanted less of, like players repeatedly slapping Kleiner in the face with a box over and over again. Seriously, we watched a playtester do it for 5 minutes straight.
Sin miedo, Gordon. No tiene pinzas y es totalmente inofensiva. Lo peor que te haría es intentar...
Archetypes. We wanted to create narrative links between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2 through our characters. Our idea was to design individuals who felt like representations of Half-Life 1's archetypes, so that players might find them familiar, almost as though they'd met them in Half-Life 1 at some point that they couldn't quite remember. We based Dr. Kleiner on the scientist model we felt was the most iconic, and his personality was largely shaped by Hal Robb, voice actors. To create more responsive and multidimensional characters in Half-Life 2, we needed to evolve our approach to working with voice actors. While running through a script with a modicum of direction was sufficient for much of the NPC dialogue for Half-Life 1, for Half-Life 2, we decided to give the actors more of an opportunity to be involved in helping to define the characters and bring them to life. We provided much more story context to the actors, showing them the game world, the environments their characters inhabited, and the other characters they interacted with. We sought actors who could take all that information and synthesize it into their performances to elevate their characters beyond what we had imagined. We held multiple sessions with the main actors, allowing them to digest and build upon their characters over time. For scenes where characters are interacting with each other, we'd often cue an actor with performances from other actors in the scene to create a better sense of connection and flow. Though we'd arrive at the studio with a script and a plan for the recording session, we made sure that the actors felt empowered and had the space to bring their own ideas to the character and performances. Having animators attend the voiceover sessions also proved critical, as they were responsible for stitching the characters' dialogue together with physical actions and expressions to form the resulting choreo scene. Often, animators found that their plans for how a scene would play out evolved quite a bit after working with the voice actor.
Todo listo por aquí.
Pues adelante.
A ver, el flujo de campos sin masa debe limitarse. He creado la variedad en la base CY, LG, la conexa, incluido el espacio de Hilbert. Las condiciones no podían ser mejores.
Eso dijiste la última vez.
¡Ey, sí, sobre ese gato!
Iniciando en 3, 2, 1...
Monitors. We use monitors a lot for storytelling in Half-Life 2 in the episodes. So much so that we even make fun of ourselves for it. The problem is they're just too damn useful. They're fantastic for expanding the world by showing events happening elsewhere, and they provide an easy way to have characters talk without needing to explain how they all got to the player's location. Anyone who's ever written any kind of story, especially one with an ensemble cast, understands the unique frustration of trying to create natural reasons for all of your characters to come together in the same place. In this case, we were really happy with how the monitor allowed Alex to teleport away and then quickly appear in Eli's lab, making everything feel real and connected.
Bueno, ¿ha funcionado?
Alex's kiss. It's a small moment, but Alex's kiss on Eli's cheek was important. Eventually, we're going to ask the player to save Eli, and we want them to care about him. To build that emotional connection, we needed to show the warmth and affection between Alex and Eli. We didn't want to oversell it with dialogue or make it too big of an event. It had to feel genuine, not performative. And we were able to iterate on the subtleties of this moment until it struck just the right note.
Gordon, en cuanto estés en posición, enviaremos con Eli.
Que ya va siendo hora.
Excelente. Iniciando en 3, 2, 1. Barney, ¿te importaría?
Suerte fuera, Gordon.
Pues sí, preparados para la proyección, Gordon. Bon voyage, te deseo lo mejor en tus futuras misiones. Secuencia final.
¿Qué diablos?
¿Qué ocurre?
¿Qué es tu mascota en las saltacabezas?
¡La mar! ¡Eli!
¡Cuidado! ¡Ahí está!
¡Está la mar con él!
¡Olvídate de eso!
Ya llega, papá.
¿Qué pasa?
No sé, parece haber algún tipo de interferencia.
Gordon, no te muevas, te sacaremos de ahí.
Algo le está alejando.
¿Qué significa eso? ¿Quién es usted? ¿Cómo ha entrado aquí?
¡Ey, ey! ¡Ha vuelto! Voy a sacarlo de ahí.
¡No puedes lanzarte al campo sin más! ¡Acabarías muerto!
Hemos perdido a Gordon. ¿Qué pasa?
¡Ni idea! ¡La interferencia le esperaba!
No te preocupes, Gordon.
Ahí está. Ah, le perdemos de nuevo.
Nombre al temido. Estoy seguro de que era Gordon Freeman.
No ha podido pasar.
Entonces, ¿dónde está?
Detrás de ti.
¡Ah!
¡Apágalo, apágalo!
¡Gordon! ¡Tienes que salir de aquí! ¡Corre! ¡Abajo, que no te vean! ¡Iré a buscarte!
Phonium extraction. Another critical tool we built in the Face Poser was the phonium editor. It processed the voice actors' dialogue lines and extracted phonemes that generate basic lip sync animations for our characters. For the hero characters, our animators use this as a starting point to create high-quality custom animations for each dialogue line, incorporating full facial animation. However, in a dynamic choreo scene, the animators wouldn't know exactly what the rest of the actor's body would be doing. This meant it required careful layering of choreo commands and timings in Face Poser, while still maintaining the actor's ability to dynamically respond to the player.
Where to, Meg? Yellow.
Automating DSP. All the sounds the player hears. Metro Cop scene. This is another scene designed to make it clear that the Metro Cops are the bad guys, except this time the player has a weapon and can finally do something about it. That something comes out of the barrel of a gun. We knew we needed the player to feel righteous, and this moment was part of creating that. The Metro Cops are still human, unlike the rest of the Combine in the game, so we felt like we had to go the extra mile in making sure.
Staircase. There are situations throughout the game that stem from simple and quite straightforward design goals, and this staircase features two of them. The first was to frame the Citadel as it awakened, showing the player they stirred up the hive. The second was to showcase our ragdoll system. While it's standard now, in 2004 it was still a novelty to see bodies tumble realistically, and stairs provided a perfect stage to make that happen.
Explosive barrels. Here, we introduce explosive barrels, a staple of first-person shooters, but with a new twist. The second pistol shot sets the barrel on fire, starting a timed detonation. A third shot will detonate the barrel immediately. This way, players could either delay the explosion or trigger it right away, depending on the situation. Players may want to feed an explosive barrel to a barnacle and then shoot it twice as a handy way to safely dispatch a cluster of them. The delayed explosion also made for more interesting chain reactions between multiple barrels. Exploding barrels were a fan favorite in the series, but also were internally favored by level designers who often felt like the game could never have enough of them.
No identificado. Confirma su estado civil como el equipo de protección local inmediatamente.
Watch it!
Helicopter Peekaboo. The Combine attack helicopter as central antagonist was something we wanted to develop through
iterative passes. Some chapters of the game, such as the on-foot sections of the canals in Ravenholm, were developed in multiple passes by different cabals. We found that handing off maps in this way led to greater variety in the experience, and a higher density of interesting moments, as each cabal added their unique touches to the maps.
Water shader. The most complex shader we made for the game was the water shader, which made full use of the newly available programmable graphics cards. When water was present, the scene was rendered 3 times. First, the underwater world for refraction, second, a reflected view, and
interstitial scenes. As playtesting progressed, we often found areas where players
Boxcar Bill. This small scene originally featured 2 human characters, but later in development, we replaced one with a Vortigaunt. We wanted to show that Vortigaunt's were coexisting with humans and resisting the Combine as well. We also introduced their ability to heal the player, although we didn't fully capitalize on that feature throughout the game. Vortigaunts became a useful narrative tool for keeping dialogue brief, as their hive mind justified their full knowledge of the world and the player's goals. This meant they never had to ask questions, neatly sidestepping the challenge of writing dialogue for a silent protagonist.
A todos los ciudadanos, la inactividad se considera conspiración. Las inadecuadas a protección civil inmediatamente. A todos los ciudadanos, la inactividad se considera conspiración. Denuncien conductas inadecuadas a protección civil inmediatamente. A todos los ciudadanos, la inactividad se considera conspiración. Denuncien conductas inadecuadas a protección civil inmediatamente. Atención, no identificado. Confirme su estado civil con el equipo de protección local inmediatamente.
Barnacle Introduction. Because barnacles can be confusing when first...
Surface properties. We play custom footstep sounds when the player walks on the slippery mud.
Mounted gun gallery. There are a few things going on in this scene. The turret firing at the breakable crates behind teaches players not to take the threat head-on and instead utilize the sewer route to defeat it. And when they reach the turret, players enjoy using it in a shooting gallery with a wave of Combine soldiers and dive-bombing scanners. We also begin to introduce the missile-firing Combine APC that pushes the players along and will show up again later in the chapter.
El comportamiento de la unidad de constante. Equipo de protección de tierra. Alerta, código. Aíslen, expongan, administren. Atención. Código de procedimiento de malestar activado. Código, inoculen, protejan. Pacifiquen. Guión, espada, esterilicen.
Delante, asaltaros a estación, pero hay otras más adelante. Me quedo por si vienen otros. Hay que mantener el ferrocarril.
Puesta en peligro social. Nivel 5. Interrumpa la evasión inmediatamente. Reciba su veredicto.
If I were more drunk, I wouldn't be so cool. Get used to it, jerk! I'm gonna try not to take that personally. Holy what? Oh! You're going down!
Make up your ears? Hungry.
Because your brain doesn't mean you don't suck.
Individuo. Se le acusa de puesta en peligro social.
Barnacle bowling. This is a satisfying example of how a bunch of design elements can come together in a matrix of interactions to create a memorable scenario for the player. We got barnacles, our physics simulations, slippery mud surface properties, and last but not least, explosive barrels. You've encountered all these on their own, but they're able to snap together naturally to create a moment we called barnacle bowling.